Okay. Let me see. Good.
If there's just one guitar, should I just do a lead one?
Yes, that's a great question. Let's walk through that.
One song.
And they also need to be reminded of what the 2 parts are.
Yeah, the little one's like.
So maybe I'll play that on keyboard.
Yeah.
And you can just play the melody. And I guess when it gets to solo, maybe I don't really want to. If I'm honest, I can probably manage deeper in, right? Yeah, exactly. Doesn't mean I can play them in time. We'll just maybe just use solo. We'll just run from the beginning a little bit for now. Oh, we're gonna do backgrounds?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Okay, I take it back. The rest of it.
You guys listen to it, right? You were that was right.
Okay, so let's start it from the top. I'll just play a little bit of keyboard along with it. Just make sure you can hear yourself in here. Let's maybe get through the first, I think it's like A, B, and let's go all the way through letter D on the chart. So that's basically a couple verses. Okay. Chorus, I think. 3 verses. I believe. Who's going to sing lead? Okay. That's your melody, right there. So let's do a 2-bar count.
Okay.
Right.
If you right?
We're going to start from the top, but we'll stop at the end of letter D.
Okay.
So beginning until the end of letter D.
Okay. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
When there is trouble, when there is it's to know when you're unhappy, everybody's home. You want reason to know which way to go. When everybody's hurt, don't let it hurt. There's something inside you when push comes to shove. When everybody wants you, something wrong. You better pull yourself that will help you talk. You got to roll with it, that's what I know. You got to roll with it, just let it go. You got to roll with it, things will improve. You got to roll with it, stay in that moment. So,
That's okay. Can you all hear yourself okay?
yeah.
All right. Very good.
Thanks, Sean.
So,
We're getting there.
yeah. So let's talk about what the middle part of the song is. It's like a big trading solo section, which would require 2 guitars, which we have one of. So when we get, for the band, when we get to letter F, let's do letter F just 2 times. Okay, so kind of as written. So it'll just be 16 bars. Instead of open, we'll just leave that as a true repeat.
Cool.
And then we'll move on to letter G, and then just play down from there. I think that'll be fine.
Do you want me to play the figure on G or keep soloing?
I think keep soloing. So yeah, so you'll basically solo at letter E, F, and G.
Yeah.
So
Got it.
with kind of those breaks in between, like at 49, there's kind of like like play kind of the part there.
Okay.
And then same thing at 60, I think.
Yeah.
That's like a little
Yeah,
part
yeah,
between. So it gets back real quick. Okay, yeah, let's try that. I think otherwise it should pretty much read straight down. It's a little fast, I think, on the tempo. I'll pull it back a little bit. Let's see, it's at 96, so let's try to do it. Yeah. All right, listen. 1, 2, 1, 2.
When you're in trouble, everything goes wrong. When you're for something and you take it too long. When you're in a hurry, everybody goes slow. You're going crazy, don't know which way to go. When you're fighting with your best friend, don't want them wrong. They say we're to beside you when push comes to shove. When everybody around you seems very low, you better prove yourself that what have you done? You got to roll with it, that's what I know. You got to roll with it, just let it go. You got to roll with everything will improve. You got to roll with it, stay in there.
Because, yeah, check out on the chart there, the very ending, ba, 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 right, in that third ending. So make sure that's nice and clear, okay? And then there are two fermatas, right? If you want to think about it, one of them is on the 4 chord, and then one of them is on the 1 chord. And then we do what we call a button, right? So if somebody says put a button on it, that means that we're going to actually have a final hit, which I believe is written in that very last bar. So just make sure that's nice and clear. Okay, so I think one of the big things from your end is the dynamic levels, right? I kind of don't feel like our highest dynamic is high enough, and I feel like maybe the pacing of the dynamics is a little weird at the moment, okay? So I think where we're starting is sort of okay. I think that very last chorus should be a good bit louder, though, I would say. Let me take a look at the drum part here to find these. Okay, so when it gets to letter, let's say bar 49, let's start there. Okay, see bar 49? Okay, so at 49, make sure you crash on the downbeat. It's a little weird if you go from kind of groove straight to just the snare drum, right? It just like loses a lot of pace. So make sure that you've got a crash on the downbeat there. And then, yeah, hi-hat at letter F. But then you go to that ride at letter G. It felt like maybe you did that 4 bars late or something. Maybe the placement just wasn't quite right. So letters E and G are basically kind of the same section. They go into the solo and out of the solo in almost the same way, with that kind of lower dynamic part in between. So, but I would say that G should probably be pretty loud. It should be the peak of the solo. So it should be probably a little louder than it was at E before that. And then, yeah, just at the very ending, ba, 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 right? We're watching you for kind of 4 hits, 1, and 3, but they are slowing down. So you just want to make sure, it kind of sounds like you just like 3 of them, right? And then same note at bar 69 with the crash on the downbeat. Okay, so kind of start there and make sure that's nice and in place. Also think at the beginning, you play a little cross stick and then switch to snare or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just stick on the snare.
Okay.
Yeah, no cross stick for this one, I don't think. Just controlling the dynamics for what it is. Okay. Sounds like maybe you've sorted whatever the sound issues were.
I hope so. I still don't even know what it was.
Yeah, it kind of got like super bright all of a sudden.
Yeah, I went back to channel 1 and all of a sudden it was really loud.
Oh.
But it wasn't that loud before.
Right. And you're using your own overdrive or using the
I'm just using a wah-wah and I'm switching the channel.
Could it be that the wah didn't get turned off?
I was thinking that, but it shouldn't have made it that much louder.
Right. Maybe it just made it so bright because it more sounded like a brightness thing to
Yeah,
me than
I think it might have been on.
Yeah. So maybe that was all that
I'm
it was.
hoping.
Yeah. It's always such a drag to know if the wah's on or off.
Yeah.
You have to like stomp it just to see. Okay. But overall nice. I think probably a big note. I think you guys are doing it well, but this is kind of a weird tune in the way that it was originally written by Mike Stern as an instrumental song, and then he re-recorded it with Eric Johnson with a vocal part added. I feel like usually songs are the other way around, where they're written as vocal songs, and then the guitar ends up playing the melody. But this is actually a guitar melody that then a vocalist is kind of interpreting. And even on the recording, there's times where they don't exactly match, right? It's like there's extra notes in the guitar or this or that. And I think overall you guys are matching pretty well. I think it was maybe in like the second verse or so where there just started to be a little bit of like phasing a little bit about where the vocal melody is, versus where the guitar melody is. So just make sure you're listening to each other closely. It's kind of hard to predict one another, but see if there's some moments that you notice. You know, if we treat this like a rehearsal, where are some moments that we don't really line up that would be good. Otherwise, just make sure you know when to come back for the chorus, right? Basically, the way the solo section works, it's, you know, even though you don't do anything during that, it is good to just know how it works, right? This song really just goes to the 4 chord for a little bit of time, goes to a G7, and then you'll hear a couple of these chords. And usually there's 4 bars after that. You'll hear the drums go back to just the snare drum before you come in. And then, Kellen, if you can make sure you nail that part coming out of the solo, There's that one. There's the other one that's shit. I can't remember exactly what it is. I think it's something like
60, 71, and 72.
that may be in guitar 2.
Yeah, you want me to play that part?
Yeah, I think play.
I
this
tried to
one.
play it, but I couldn't read it because it's on that
on
other
the
page.
other page, right? Yeah,
And I wasn't sure exactly which part it was at.
yeah, totally. So that's kind of the lead in to get us back.
Do you want two music stack?
71. Okay.
Dallin, do you want two music stack?
Yeah, he's good. How you doing?
Exactly. So that'll be kind of what you're listening for to come back in after the solo. Is that line he just played right there. Play it one more time, Kelly, so you can hear. Right, so that's basically your lead in. Right?
Before that, I'm just gonna hold this note. It's like
Yeah.
3, 4,
Totally.
2.
And then yeah, kind of similar to it is a little weird to like come out of the first solo and then go into kind of a different solo. You
Yeah.
know? I think that like pacing wise, maybe treat like the first, like the G7 part as more of a high point. You know, kind of like louder there, and then letter F, kind of pull it back a little bit so that our dynamic is low, and then it rebuilds.
At 61, is it still on D minor?
It goes back to G there, G7, yeah. G9 for those, whatever, 7 bars before the D flat and the A. So yeah, I think those transitions, I think just as a band, we kind of need to work out the dynamic there. But yeah, I think make the first G7 portion kind of loud like you did, and then pull it way back for the D minor section to build back into the next G7 section. That'd be good as a way to try it. And then, I mean, I think soloing wise, I think you can try out some of the more, Mike Stern-esque chromaticism, starts to not sound always so bluesy when he plays some of that. But, you can get a little weird with that one chord vamp section if you want to,
Yeah. Maybe we could trade drums at F.
Yeah, let's try one more time with you soloing through, and then let's try that. But keep that in the back of your mind, and maybe we will make that a trading section. I think it's letter F. Letter F, which is originally 2 guitars trading. Maybe we could have guitar and drums trading. I think that's a good idea. But for now, let's do one more time since you're going to get to solo plenty of times.
Yeah.
Let's try one more time with just you soloing all the way through. Okay? All right. Yeah, let's start from the top again.
When your worries trouble, everything going wrong. When you're waiting for something and taking too long. When you're in a hurry, everybody going slow. You're growing crazy, don't know which way to go. When you're fighting with your best friend, the one that you love. They say go to beside you when push comes to shove. When everybody around you. You better put yourself where I be told. to know when it just let it go. You got to know everything going wrong. You got to know everything going. You got to know when it just feels safe. You got to know when it just let it be. You got to know when it just wanna know. You got to know when it go with the flow. You got to know when it just wanna know. You got to know when it just let it go. You got to know everything will improve. You got to know every state of
All right. So, still placed the one at 3 in the wrong spot, right?
yeah.
So I think you kind of put it on B3 instead of on B1. So why don't we do this? Let's start letter I, third ending.
Okay.
Letter I, take the third ending.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, because you don't have to sing for right now if you don't want to. I just want to have the band do letter I, go straight to the third ending. Cool? All right, let's try. That's a little better. I think you could be clearer about where the hits are, but they were at least in the right spot this time, right? Don't treat it as a we're at this tempo, we're at this tempo. It is a slow down, right? So if we're boom, 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 see how they gradually got slower. They were kind of in time the first couple down, 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 down. Kind of the second two that are a little bit more upside down. Other stuff. We're kind of losing the swing feel. Okay? It's getting pretty straightened out. Okay, so it's like slightly swing. It's not, it's not like DC go swing, right? It's not like that swing 16. It's not really triplet swing 16, right? Because that would be it's not really that, but it's not right. So you kind of have to find that in between. If I were to lean one way, I would lean more swung for now, so that your ears hear it as swung, and then you can kind of widen that swing a little bit so that it's not so. I'm guilty sometimes of trying to make it too like metronomic swing, right? This is like one of those tempos where you can kind of get that in between sort of sounding swing. Okay, so I'll have you do it one more time, and I want you to make that swing feel sort of the right way. Right? Lean towards more swing. You have to go slight. Don't lean towards straight. Lean towards swing, because we're all playing a little more swing. Also, yeah, the surfaces still aren't quite worked out right. All right, so at letter E, you should be on the ride.
Oh, yeah.
Right, which I think is maybe at one point you switched away from it. And then at 49, the last 4 bars of E is the snare, right? And then at letter F, you're on the hi-hat, right? That part's supposed to be softer at that point, okay? And then at letter G, you go to the bell of the ride, right? So you need to kind of keep track of those levels. I think after the solo, I kind of like the dynamic. That last verse is kind of stripped down, and then it gets pretty loud for the end. But yeah, that whole solo section, you really got to make sure you mark those sections well.
Yeah.
Okay? Right now, it's a bit confusing as to where they are. So definitely swing feel and mark the sections properly. Right? We're talking about more stuff, we can kind of nail that, but that's the place to start. Let's see. I have some other stuff I was going to say.
The tempo does bump up a little bit
Yeah.
when we start playing. Measure 9, so make sure that that drum groove doesn't cause you to rush just a little bit. It would push the tempo just a little bit.
Yeah, because I know it's pretty linear, right? There's kind of like a lot of stuff moving around, right? But yeah, even from the count off from when we start, that first bar is a little like, right? It's all over the place and it kind of ends up landing together. Okay. Maybe instead of trading, this could be an interesting thing to try. Helen, I'd like you to trade with yourself. Right? So kind of make the way you approach playing your first 4 bars and your next 4 bars during the trading different. If that means changing the tone, if it means changing the way you're playing, whatever it means, right? Wah on, wah off, I don't know, right? Kind of play around with it and see if you can kind of like make them different enough. I think that would be kind of an interesting experiment to try that. And it's kind of a fun way to solo sometimes. So yeah, kind of try it that way because I think that all the stuff that you're playing is really, really great. And I like a lot of the fills in between the stuff as well. I think all that is really good. So, yeah, I don't have much more to say outside of that. Okay. And it still feels like the verse right before the first chorus is the one where there's just like a little bit of weirdness in the rhythmic phrasing. Everything else I think is generally working pretty well. I think the switch works nicely. Let's have you do it one more time. Just really focus on that spot. It's like the second verse. Probably just making sure that that's nice. All right, let's try to get from the top.
Remember Alex mentioned it. Something over here.
Yeah, I think
One of these.
yeah, this is the good one. You can go ahead.
Yeah, go.
Free keyboard lessons.
I don't know, when Alex does his things, I just watch his hands.
When you are in trouble, everything went wrong. When you're with something and take it too long. When you're in trouble, everybody goes wrong. You're going crazy, don't know which way to go. When you're fighting best friend, don't want to love. They seem to be such you when push comes to shove. Wherever around you seems so very cold. You better prove yourself than what I've been told. You got to roll with it, that's what I know. You got to roll with it, chance I can go. You got to roll with it, stay well and wrong. You got to roll with it, stay in that going really lonely. So sad and blue. When you need somebody and they're there for you. When you're not happy and you're thinking you. You got to realize what you got to do. You got to roll with it, just wait and see. You got to roll with it, just let it be. You got to roll with it, that's what I know. You got to roll with it, just let it go.
the surfaces is still kind of fucked, right? It's still just not quite right. I thought it was kind of cool going to the ride in the spot it was supposed to be kind of quiet because it was kind of a peak, but then like kind of the time there got a little jacked up because I think you kind of realized that you weren't really in the right spot. Yeah. One more thing at the very end with the two fermatas. So if you listen super closely on the recording, there's two guitars, right? On one of the fermatas, one of the guitarists plays kind of a big solo over that, and the other guitarist plays a big solo over that. So rather than just change whenever you feel like it, make sure you're kind of listening and watching what's going on around, right? Because a lot of times when you're going from one fermata to the next, you're just kind of hitting it when you feel like it, but Kellen's in the middle of an idea, right? He's in the middle of like playing kind of a line, and that needs to kind of be like finished, and then next thing. Think about like your two fermatas, right? You play some fills, you don't want anybody to change chord while you're doing that, right? So imagine he's kind of doing that as well. You're all kind of filling at the same time. So there's kind of this like, you know, non-verbal communication that ends up happening where like somebody kind of wraps up their fill and everybody else kind of takes note and goes, okay, I'm going to kind of wrap up mine too. But you should still wait until they're finished. You're finishing yours before he's finishing his. But I personally don't think his is going too long. So just wrap yours up, let him finish, then hit the next one and do the same thing for the very last hit so you don't cut anybody off, right?
Yeah.
When it gets to that, stop looking at the chart.
Yes, that's what I was going to
Right? Like looking at a half note with a fermata and a whole note with a fermata and then a quarter note ending, I don't think you need to look at that, right? You need to look at what the band is doing, right? When things are left up to interpretation like that, the notation isn't important. It's just giving us all instructions. Okay, got the instruction, right? Now I just need to pay attention to when's the right time to do it right now. If you play with a band, that could be different every night. If you play with different people, that could be different every night. Some people want to put a button on it fast and move on to the next song. Some people want to extend that, right? So you want to, you know, it's kind of, once again, that non-verbal sort of communication that that happens in a setting like this that you pay a little more attention to. Like when I made you not read with the chart for the Jimi Hendrix song. Like, there's times to stare at the chart, there's times not to, right? I think this is a time not to at the end of a song like this. Okay? To make sure you got it. If you're unfamiliar with the song, yeah, sometimes you gotta stare at the chart, right? But something to keep in mind. Let's swap out. So we'll swap drums and then swap lead for the vocal. I think you could do even more to sound different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it is kind of a cool experiment to see what happens.
Let's make sure I'm ready. Yeah. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3.
Everyone around seems so
the solo part after that, letter G, is 8 bars.
Right.
You play
Okay.
that ride groove for 4. Part of it, I kind of wonder if you moved on early because halfway through F you switched to the ride.
Yes, that makes sense. And then I cued the roll on the G to. I was already lost by that point. So
Yeah,
that's-
because you kind of did it early, and then I stopped you.
Yeah.
And then you ended up coming back to it late.
To it late,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
going for too long on it, right? I think the biggest thing that I would urge you to do, along with what I was telling him, is just like know the song, know what the other parts are and how your part relates to. When you hear this, we're going to the chorus, right?
Yeah.
That happens 2 bars before the chorus. It's the 7th bar of every verse. 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got to, right? It's like it happens that way every time. But I think you were just kind of like so focused on the chart.
Yeah.
Once again, like once you're lost, the chart is not your friend anymore, right?
Yeah.
Stop following it because you don't know where you are, right? So no reason to necessarily follow it. Also, just one more quick comment I'll make is on the groove. I think get a little mixed up where the snare goes sometimes, but not like disastrously so. It's just
And the
misplaced
chorus
every now and then.
specifically, right? That-
Yeah, the chorus especially. But in the main groove, it is like dragging mid pattern.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
it'll be like boom, ba, ba, ba,
I see. So,
right? It's
Yeah.
like right in the middle of it. It drags and then it gets back, and drags and it gets back. So it's like I think of like time as macro and micro.
Mm.
Macro time is like how's our timing throughout the entire song. Micro is like within the
Beats.
groove. How is the distance consistent between them?
okay.
I feel like overall our macro time is not bad. Like we're kind of staying around the same tempo, but our micro time, it's just like it'll push here, it'll pull there, it'll
Yeah,
push
yeah,
here.
yeah.
and then
Makes your
slow
guys'
down.
job way more difficult.
Yeah,
but,
definitely. And I'm doubling your snare part.
I see.
I'm playing
Okay.
exactly that. So when
So,
I hear
right,
one a little
you're
behind,
fine. Yeah,
I'm trying
makes
to
sense.
adjust to it. It becomes a little tricky. Let's do one more time. At the very end, let's just do twice at letter I.
Got it.
Treat that as a first ending, second ending. Okay. And then for the guitar solo, let's do once at letter F. Cool. So just kind of cutting out some repeats. So you won't do your last 4 lines of lyrics. Basically.
Oh,
You'll just cut some lyrics in.
last one.
I think it's the last one. Yeah. Do it. Yeah. Let's do it.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
The world is trouble, everything gone wrong. When you're waiting for something, and it's taking too long. When you got hurry, everybody goes slow. You're going crazy, don't know which way to go. But if I'm not the one's the love. There's someone inside you, don't push yourself to show. When everyone around me seems so close, you better notice I never have been told. You got to know it, that's what I know. You got to know it, 'cause that's that I know. You got to know it, and there's no harm. You got to know it, it's that I know. Really want it, so sad I do. When it's too bad, I know what to do. Your heart is laughing, and thinking of you. You got to feel it, I know what to do.
It's all good. Keep working on that. All right, guys. So next week we'll continue. I think next week is our last song, but also be ready to discuss what we want to do for the concert.
Man, it rocks. I love that song. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.